Hair, Love, Radio.
You're listening to Hair Love Radio, where we get into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to make your dreams a reality, start unlocking your potential, and live your best life, helping hairstylists, creatives, and girl bosses spread their awesome and light like confetti. You were made for awesome. Hi, welcome back to Hair Love Radio. I am your host, Elizabeth Faye. I am here with one of my dear friends and our hair love artist, Christoffersen, and you may know her as Mermicorn on the Instagram world. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So we are here today in Park City, Utah, and we are having the ultimate girls' weekend, really.
It's been an adventure. It's fun.
It's so fun.
And it's gorgeous, so.
It's fall right now, and everything is turning. We just did a really fun photo shoot, and I made KL step in cow poop in her beautiful white boots.
Hey, you know, we had to break them in sometimes, so
Yeah,
perfect.
she is adventure ready, all the things. So for those of you who don't know KL is one of the most sweet, down-to-earth, genuine women. We love her so much. She was one of our educators at Hair Love Retreat, and I already loved her because I went to one of her classes. I think it was 2015, 16, long time ago.
Years.
Yeah, in California. I thought she was wonderful online. So I went out there, took her class. She was lovely, and I've loved her ever since. So I was really excited to bring her on to our first ever Hair Love Retreat. And how was that experience for you?
You know, it was honestly a life-changing experience, and I don't say that lightly. Just having the opportunity to spend, a couple of days with some of the most, brilliant, bright lights in our industry was like so good for my heart and soul. And I think it put a new perspective on our industry for me when I really needed it. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
Hair Love, obviously, I created it, so I love it. But that weekend was one of the best weekends of my life.
Oh, hands down. It honestly, it just kind of renewed something inside me and like realized how many different like-minded, women and men are in our industry, and being able to spend time with everyone, like whether there's, 100 followers with this person or 200,000 followers, it was like everyone was like so just 100% in and vulnerable, and just the connection was amazing. So
that's something about Hair Love Retreat is we do bring people together in a different way. And when that many people who are like-minded, have similar goals, passions, desires, are vibrating and their frequencies are that high, we don't have cell phone service, and we're all in one location together out in nature, it's so powerful. And you can't help but be enlightened and inspired and feel all these amazing feelings. And when you learn in an environment like that, you retain and have so many different aha moments that you can't have in a traditional classroom setting, which 100%. Is a huge reason why it was created. Yeah. So we literally, Gail was painting on a stage in the mountains. You can see all of the, it's so cool. All the mountains in this tent. Yeah. We have our blankies and everyone is, watching her. It's just
and
very
people are
unique.
Jumping on stage and like helping with like,
it was
getting
so
it done
cool.
on time. And
yeah,
it was really amazing. Honestly, it like kind of the confidence that it, not just myself, but I could see like people actually growing in their own confidence and like leaving. They were excited, and, it's just seeing different Instagram stories and posts that people that attended, like I could see the confidence that they were all
the change
bringing back with them to their own journey. So it was cool.
Yeah, well, and I think the relationships is the best part that comes out of it at the end of the day is watching like the tribe stay together. So we are here for another Hair Love event. Tomorrow is Hair Love Club, Blossom into Awesome, and KL's on our panel. And KL and I are going to dive in a little bit into her Instagram journey, her journey with her health. It's an interesting story.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like I have a lot of different perspectives because I went viral. I started my Instagram account, had like 400 followers, and I was just like posting to my clients. And then all of a sudden it got picked up by BuzzFeed, and it was kind of before like hair stuff was getting picked up.
And this is the fluid hair painting. For those of you who don't know, KL is known for her coloring techniques, and one of her hugest things she's known for is fluid hair painting, which is she paints hair. It's actually like spread out like a sunburst. It's really beautiful. and she can paint it on the table, and she sells these custom tables she's made. She teaches color classes. She's an amazing salon owner. Her salon is so cool. It's called Cheeky Strut. So she's like a girl boss in this realm, and then your videos go viral. So what does that look like for you? What happens? What changes?
It was like really cool. I remember like feeling like, oh yeah, like I'm close to 5,000 followers. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, a couple days later it was 10,000 followers.
That's crazy.
And then I got to like 50,000 followers, and like my stomach started hurting all the time, which is amazing. And I would never like complain about, how everything happened. But it was also one of those things where you had to learn really quickly, especially when you weren't like, that wasn't your intention.
Right. Well, and it happened, almost overnight.
Yeah, it really did. Within like 2 months, I think I was over 50,000 followers. So
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was like kind of just a surreal experience. And I had to like learn the negative and the positive, and like also I had to figure out what my intention was. And still to this day, I'm still figuring out like, okay, what am I trying to say to people? And I'm very conscious of that, because I don't ever want to put things out that feel like I'm just kind of putting it out there because I have to.
Yeah, no, you're very genuine with everything you do. And I think
almost
hard
too
thoughtful.
Yeah.
You're like you want everything you say to be like true to how you feel, and you want it to help your audience, almost to where sometimes you don't say anything. Yeah, it's a fault.
Yeah, I had over the last year taken a lot of time off with posting. So I think it's like hard because now I'm like, okay, I need to start getting back into posting. And it's like, how do you share your story when you've been like absent for like the last year? And how do you explain to people like, okay, this is what I've been going through, but then also I'm a private person. So it's been this weird, strange walk of how do I stay true to myself? How do I keep my privacy, but also share my journey with everyone and not feel
violated.
Yeah.
No, and I think Instagram can make people feel a little violated if they because you're not sure what to share, when to share.
Right.
And we're in an age where it's like share everything story, like, and that's overwhelming to a lot of people. And even I coach people, and some of the people I coach at higher levels, they're like, well, I don't want to share that. And so that's where, when you were saying you're trying to figure out your intention and your why, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, and the fact that with social and putting this time in, we want to make sure we're intentional and we have a why, because we don't want to just share these precious private parts of our life for no reason. Mm-hmm. And that can feel, violating and overwhelming. And so as we're figuring out our intentions and our why, which I'm sure so many people listening are like, oh my gosh, I don't know my why either. Like, and you and I were just talking about that. That you really can narrow down what you should be sharing when you figure out that intention and why, because it gives yourself boundaries to, this is how I'm going to speak to my audience. This is my boundaries of what I'm not going to. And I think hopefully that helps people feel a little more comfortable. But if you are listening and you're still figuring out your intention and why, totally normal.
It's okay.
It's totally okay.
That's the reality that honestly no one tells you when you're younger. I mean, they might touch on it or whatever, but everyone's just figuring it out as they go. And even when you think you have everything figured out and your shiz together, like all of a sudden something comes up and slaps you in the face and you're like, just kidding.
Life.
I have to like re-alter and I have to examine like what direction I'm going in. And that's okay. It's like learning to kind of like ebb and flow and understand that it's not about balance as much as we like to really use that word like, oh, I have to balance work, I have to balance life, I have to balance this, I have to balance that. But it's more about finding like a counterbalance, like when you need it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I really do have a hard time with the word balance. Because I'm like, there isn't a balance.
No.
And I always use the word flow because I'm like, it just has to flow. I don't believe in like this balance that we're searching for. I just don't think it exists.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, like how long can you hold a headstand? Like how long can you hold, stand on one leg? It's eventually you're going to have to like give. So it's more or less like, okay, let's say I spent all week working and I didn't have time for my family or I didn't have time for my friends. Okay, I'm going to commit to making sure that I have this like counterbalance of time and making sure this energy is like fully focused on other parts of my life instead of it being like, okay, I'm juggling this, I'm juggling that, I'm keeping all the balls in the air. It's like, okay, it's okay sometimes to set one of the balls down and focus on, one or two balls at the same time. So.
Yeah, no, I love that. It is the ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And just because crap's going to get thrown at you and your new flow is different than it was yesterday.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about, you've been a little silent online.
Yeah.
And have you had fear with that, excitement with that? What do you feel like? What has come of that?
Sure.
because that's kind of taboo-y. People are like, oh my God, if I go silent, radio silence, what happens?
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with late stage Lyme disease. So I, at first, was really excited to finally have a diagnosis for what I was going through. I was really sick, exhausted all the time, had a lot of just like weird symptoms happening that would just like change and evolve and grow and go away. And finally I was referred to a doctor that specialized in chronic illness, and she was able to diagnose me. So when you get a diagnosis, you think, awesome, I'm going to heal, I'm going to get better, I'm going to be better than ever. Well, with Lyme, it's a little bit trickier because when it's in late stage, it's in your whole body, it's in your brain. It can start attacking different things that it's like you're chasing this virus around your body. So I would have days where I felt amazing, and then I would have days where I felt like I was dying. So I committed to this program through this doctor after finding out, that I was sick, and I was like in it to get better. But what happens is like a lot of times you actually get a lot more sick. Like you become really ill from the treatment because you're trying to kill off this virus in your body. During this time, this is when I kind of started to see the other side of Instagram and social media. I had been married for 6 months at this point, going through this treatment, and then found out through Instagram and Facebook that my husband of 6 months was having multiple affairs. So that's where I also started to kind of have, So not only was I trying to go through this, not talk about it to a lot of people, also trying to do these classes that I was doing, go out and talk about my experiences, talk about social media and my experience with it. And then I had this resentment in a way towards social media because that's how he had connected,
Yeah.
And
well, you were tying it to
it was just a lot.
Turning point in your life. Yeah.
So for me, it was like, my whole career, I've just kind of buried myself in my work whenever I feel like my personal life is unraveling. But when you're at a point where you're so sick that you can't do that, it was a strange journey for me because I had to kind of almost disconnect from a lot of things in my life and kind of feel my way through it instead of shutting myself off and working through it like I typically would do. I actually had to feel all these emotions. I had to feel this anger toward having this illness and going undiagnosed for 20 years. I had to go through this whole embarrassment, which now I'm okay, I had nothing to be embarrassed about.
Right.
But this whole explanation to everybody, every 30 minutes, I had a new client in my chair. I had to talk about my illness with them because they needed to understand what I was going through. Yeah. I had to talk about my divorce with them. So it was a lot of you're told to leave it at the door. But I feel like when you've had clients for over 10 years, you become friends with them and they've shared their stories and you've shared, your life. And I really started to kind of just close myself off from the social media side and really reconnect with a lot of my clients on a level of, sharing with them. And then, in return, a lot of women I had no clue had gone through similar situations, shared their stories with me, whether it was illness or whether it was, same situations with their marriage or relationships. And I started to really connect with other human beings on a different level, not as Myrma Gornhair, but as Katie Lynn, as, KL. But for me, it was, I had to find myself in a way that I never expected at, 32 years old. I had to figure out what my life was going to look like. And
I'm speechless right now.
Yeah. So it's okay, you're sick. How do you get better? I started seeking out a lot of different treatments, connecting with other people in the Lyme community. But it was also really hard because I didn't understand what I was going through. So when, everyone's well, why don't you share your story on social media? And I agree. I'm getting to the point now where I feel like I'm in control enough and understand enough of my illness and what I've been through that I can actually have conversations with people. But when you're in something where you feel like you are obligated or owe people an answer to okay, why are you not posting? Why are you not online? But you also have to stay true to yourself. And I wasn't ready to share because when I would share with people, it was hard for me to explain what I was going through because my brain and my body were so disconnected.
Yeah.
So it was one thing to share with people that I've known for 5 to 10 years, but sharing with sharing what I was going through with strangers was really hard for me.
Yeah, 100%.
And it made me feel guilty. Like, I honestly felt like, okay, these people are supporting me. They're following me online. They're, wanting to know what's going on. But it was hard for me to open up and be vulnerable in a way because I didn't want to look like my life was unraveling. And I didn't want to, failure's a hard thing to like talk about sometimes. And there's this whole like world of women and men that have been through similar situations, and you're like, I'm not alone. Like, there are people that, have been through similar situations, and they're able to like share and be vulnerable. And, the best thing you can ever say to anybody that's going through anything that isn't good or isn't planned, instead of saying like, I'm sorry, because like that was the hardest thing. I didn't want people feeling sorry for me, whether it was like they felt sorry for me because I was sick, or felt sorry for me because they didn't know what else to say, or they felt sorry for me because divorce is not something that you plan on doing when you get married. Don't say you're sorry, and just say, hey, this really sucks, and I'm here for you if you want to talk, or I'm here for you if you want to go throw glassware at a wall.
Yeah. I love that you were saying, though, about what people how they should react, because I think we literally said this in Danny's podcast that she was like, hey, she said, I know a lot of you are going to skip over this podcast because it has to do with divorce, and you think this is something you're never going to go through or you can't relate to.
100%.
Which everyone thinks, obviously, when they get married. So not saying that we think you're going to get a divorce, but there's probably going to be a client in your chair or a friend in your life who goes through something like this.
Yeah.
And it's great to have that compassion and empathy, because anyone who goes through this, like you're saying, they really feel fucking isolated and on an island. And I had a lot of people kind of piece out of my life. And I'm sure it wasn't out of hate. I think they just didn't know what to do. And I just needed people not to judge me.
Yeah.
Because you're going to do stuff that isn't what they think is normal at that moment. Because you are picking up the pieces of an explosion and figuring it out. And you need people who aren't judging you about your blonder hair or going out or staying home and crying or whatever it is. Things are going to be messy, and you just need love.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I pieced out of a lot of people's lives. Like, some of my best friends, I had to like kind of just like separate myself from a lot of things. And it wasn't because I didn't love them or I wasn't like wanting them in my life. And it was more so for me, I needed to almost have like this alone time with myself. I had to like get right with myself. I had to, I didn't want to have to be strong for people. So many people would say like, oh, this will make you stronger, or you're so strong to be going through this. And I was like, I don't want to be strong. I want to be weak. I want to cry. I want to be
you didn't choose that. Yeah.
No, I don't want to be this. And, I feel like sometimes we glorify the idea that sometimes going through something painful makes us stronger. And yes, over time, but not right away. And you don't need to be reminded, like, everything happens for a reason. Like, I used to hate that saying, but honestly, everything did happen for me to end up right where I am right now. So I am grateful for some of the things that have happened, but
it doesn't take away from
in the moment,
hardness.
In the moment,
Yes.
It's like sometimes you just need to like be around strangers almost, because they don't look at you, even if they're not looking at you with pity and they're not looking at you, it's like your friends see you, and they see when you're hurting, and they see when you're in pain. And I felt like that's how I felt like whenever I'd post a story or a post, even though like I know no one was like really judging me, I almost just felt like this weird feeling of I feel fake. Like, I feel fake for posting anything right now, because my life is not something that is good. Like, I felt like I had so much anger and pain happening that even if a post was positive and trying to be like honest about, different situations I'd been going through, it was still a lot for me. And I eventually just kind of stopped. And I hadn't really posted before I went to the Hair Love retreat. I lost confidence in myself. I was living in this just negative space of just, I was emotional. I was, I'd pushed a lot of people away. I think I was just looking for every reason to push anyone away from me, and almost didn't go. I mean, I was having like...
I remember actually, this is like information I haven't shared out loud with anyone besides our team. We hadn't heard back from you, and I was like, wait, is Gail going to
she
show
come?
up? Like,
Yeah.
she's supposed to be teaching. And we were a little bit like, I don't know if Kayle's going to come.
Right.
And then a couple days before we got confirmation and
Yeah.
we're like, okay, she's
I know.
coming. Like, I'm really glad.
No, I was in a place of avoidance. And, it's a bummer because it was hard for me to really trust myself just to say no to things, or, I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. It's hard to like turn it down. But like, there was a lot of brands I was working with and, different, opportunities like with collaboration. And eventually it was like, I felt like I was just letting everyone down and I was like failing everyone. And that was like awful. I wish I would have just like almost kind of like
Just said no.
said, hey, I'm going through some stuff. I can't. But it was hard for me to do that because I'm such like a people pleaser. I want to make everyone happy.
And sometimes we have to say yes to ourselves. Because
Yeah.
when we say yes to someone else,
Exactly.
we say no to us.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have room to say no to yourself at the
Exactly.
moment.
And with going to Hair Love Retreat, there was something inside me that was just like, you have to go. You have to go.
I'm so glad you came.
I am so grateful because it gave me a sense of like confidence back and a sense of pride and a sense of ownership. And it sparked something in me that made me realize it was okay to give myself grace and forgiveness. And there were so many women that shared their stories with me, their struggles, and I left there with just a sense of, okay, it's time for me to buckle down and really get treatment and take it seriously. I have a business that like, it's almost been open 10 years and I had just bought a condo and I had just started building this life for myself and had the opportunity to start seeing a doctor states away. And how do you just all of a sudden say, okay, I'm not going to be home for 3 weeks at a time while I'm doing this treatment, and I don't know how long this treatment's going to be taking until I get better. So, it was scary, and I mean, it still is scary. I'm still going through treatment. This doctor is incredible. Literally within the last 2 weeks, I've started to feel like myself like 5 years ago when I felt the best I'd ever felt.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, my brain is working again. Like I'm clearly able to like have thoughts and actually like have direction with them. Whereas before I would have all these thoughts, but then I would get so exhausted and I'd get forgetful and I couldn't like, remember half the things that I had just had a conversation about. Around the time of Hair Love Retreat, I started losing vision and hearing on my right side.
Gosh.
Yeah, which as a hairstylist, like that's
a big deal.
really scary. Yeah, as it's my hands were failing
Scary
me.
no matter
like,
who
yeah,
you are. Yeah.
it was like I constantly felt like I had acid in my veins and like razor blades in my joints, and
Oh my God, Kale.
I felt like an old lady. Like it was not good.
Yeah.
And it was hard to like explain that to people because then it's like, okay, maybe it's all in my head. Maybe I'm just like really sensitive. This is just part of getting older. But then after, going to this doctor and him diagnosing me with some co-infections, and he's really like incredible with the fact that he doesn't just treat things with medication. He actually heals, the different symptoms and makes sure to almost like work backwards. Mm-hmm. So I've learned a lot about the human body and just like how to slow down and just realize like it's hard. I have like FOMO all the time watching everyone's like Instagram stories and seeing how hard they're hustling. And it's like you're having to sit on the sidelines, but I know this is like what's best for me right now. And it's hard because I know I've missed out on a lot of opportunities, but I also have to realize like this is for the rest of my life. Like sometimes we have to sit down and like set all the balls down and just hug ourselves and be like, it's okay.
So here's a message. I'm actually going to read this. That's super funny. And I think I'm going to flip through my journal right now and read this. I write my thoughts down when I feel a certain way. You can see all this craziness. Okay. So I think a lot of people feel like that no disease, like nothing. Maybe they have no money. Maybe they have children at home. Maybe they have a spouse who doesn't let them travel. Maybe they just have fear holding them back. I think we have this, air quotations FOMO, right? This fear of missing out on what, right? What the fuck are we missing out on? Right. We don't know. But this fear of missing out on, and I think it is this fear of missing out on being awesome, on being more. And I was kind of asking myself, like, when are we enough awesome? When is enough enough? When do we finally like create enough content, provide enough value to the world that we're like, I am finally awesome. I have made it. And it's really like you'll just chase it. It's like chasing your own tail because there is no amount of awesome that
No.
you can fulfill that. And it's enough when you decide it's fucking enough.
Yeah.
And so it's that decision of just being like, no, I am enough. This is enough because I was always enough.
Yeah.
And like you were kind of talking about, like worried about missing out.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get really stressed out about not being able to do enough things in the day and get enough time done, or having the resources I need to do whatever with my business. And it really comes down to this fear of functioning in fear and scarcity, that there isn't the time, that the universe, God, whatever, didn't give me the time I needed to do what I needed to do. And I'm functioning in a scarcity mentality that there's not enough. When in reality, like we have, like the time we have is the time we have, and we were given it for a reason.
Yes.
And it's just all a facade in our head. And so like you taking care of yourself is more than enough, because that's like where you're at right now.
Yeah,
And you know what I mean? It's just how we're thinking.
Timing
and so
is
FOMO
everything.
is just in our heads, and it's just functioning out of fear and scarcity when we realize like
Yeah. No,
you are where you need to be right now.
That's 100%. I mean, up until like probably a month ago, even, I was still in this really negative space. I have an amazing boyfriend that supports me through all of this, but still, you know, it's hard, and he's been incredible. But I realized I was putting a lot on myself, of just being like, I'm sick, like this isn't fair. I was afraid to do things because I didn't want to feel sick the next day, even if I was feeling well. And I watched this documentary, and I can like give that information to you later, but there was one thing said in the documentary that this woman had gone through this huge trauma, and she should have died. And she, you know, went through this whole thing and woke up one day, and it resonated so deep with me in a way that, you know, so many people are choosing to take their own lives right now because they're in so much pain, whether it's emotional, mental, physical. And she said, I woke up in bed one day. I hadn't been going to work. I hadn't been seeing family or friends. I was just like eating my feelings, whatever. And I realized like I made the choice to live. There were so many times that this trauma she went through, she should have died. Any normal human being would have. But she made the choice to live and like fight to survive. But then when she did survive, she was just stuck in surviving mode, and she wasn't living anymore. So she kind of talked about how she would take these tiny steps every day. And when she would wake up, she would say, like, how am I going to live today?
I love that.
And it's
I love that.
every day since then, like I realized I hadn't been living in 2 years. I was so afraid of getting close to people. I was so afraid of sharing my stories, so afraid of living my life. I mean, I jumped out of an airplane saying like, I'm living my best life. Like I'm doing all these things. But in reality, I was just like distracting myself just so I could survive like through the pain and the hurt I was feeling physically, emotionally, mentally. And so now every day I'm like, what can I do for myself that's going to make my life better and like actually live? So it's like putting myself out of my comfort zone. It's, you know, taking, you know, a 20-minute walk with the dogs and like really focusing on I'm actually walking the dogs. I'm not like on my phone scrolling Instagram. I'm like enjoying the moment I'm having with them. Just little things like I actually call people and FaceTime people now, whereas before I would avoid like phone calls and text messages and interaction. And it's been this like weird awakening in a way. Like I have been asleep for 2 years, and it feels good to be alive.
Oh, I'm like,
I know. It's one of those things where it's like I'm living now, and I'm like I'm so happy and grateful for every painful situation I've been through, because
I'm crying.
no, I know. Like it feels good. It feels good to know that like I'm worthy of being loved and loving other people, and it's I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to
It's beautiful, and I really think that
and like
I
it's
love
like,
that. I'm gonna start asking myself that question in the morning, like,
you know,
what can I do to be alive today?
it's
I love
the
that.
simplest question, but like, you know, so many of us are just surviving through life, and we're like putting all this pressure, and we're forcing ourselves to do things that like it's not living. We're doing them because we're like burdened and like, okay, if I just like get to the next hour, if I get through the next client, if I get through the next like family event, and like you're just checking your phone, you're checking your watch, and
Or
it's
like checking the checklist. Yeah.
But like we stopped living a long time ago, and it's like, okay, that was such a huge change and shift, and it's been incredible because I actually now can like feel things in a way that is so healing. And you know, getting the chance to connect with all these women this weekend has been, I was looking forward to it. I was so excited.
I know.
I'm like, I can't be sick this weekend. I want to feel good this weekend. And I'm like so grateful for it because, you know, I feel like sometimes it's hard to always find our tribe and to be part of such an amazing group of women that have such unique stories, but also have such incredible mindsets and like the desire to make everything, you know, grow and evolve. And it's something that I have no words for. And I'm really grateful to be a part, you know.
I'm grateful too.
Yeah.
No, like we were driving in the car yesterday and I get emotional because I mean, Hair Love is a dream for me, right? Like this is a dream. And it's not a dream because it's like a fun brand. It's a dream because it's the connections we make and the relationships we build. And I understand and I know that those things are so life-changing and they propel us into new levels of our life. I mean, it's vital to your happiness and success to be around other people who think like you.
Yeah, it's compounding these ideas and these passions, and there's so many like-minded thoughts that we've either been struggling with, and then we, you know, verbalize it, and then someone else is able to say like, okay, like, have you tried this or thought this or like looked at it this way, and it's compounding all these like ideas, and it's like growing this thing that is amazing. Like it's like, I can't wait to see what happens in the next year. I keep saying 2019 is my year. Like
I love that.
2019 is my year, and I'm so excited. And I feel like, okay, the rest of 2018, I'm healing, I'm getting there, and then 2019 is going to be like amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's when I started crying though when you said I'm just so happy to be alive, and that's like, I mean, that's the point of it all, right?
Exactly.
Is to feel happy to be alive.
Yeah.
And whatever.
We forgot that that's the point of it. Like we're supposed to be living, and we're all just like trying to like make it to the next day, and it's like we stopped living somehow. We're just going through the motions, and
that's beautiful.
It doesn't need to be anything crazy or whatever. It's just little things like, how am I going to live today? Whether it's journaling or, you know, just making sure you're actually looking at your kids while you're playing with them instead of just like rushing to make sure that they get off to school or, you know.
You know what's funny? Sometimes, do you ever watch a movie or a commercial and it's so full of life? Like you see the happiness and the joy and the dog's running or people are on vacation. And you're like, oh my God, life is like so exciting. Yeah. And then have you ever, maybe just me, so I hope I'm not alone in this. I hope someone listening is like, oh my God, I felt that way. But, where you see that happiness and that life captured in that film, and you're like, I want my life to feel like that, just full of life, right? And it's not necessarily anything to do with work or anything. It's just like sunshine and flowers and people. And I think that's a testament of kind of like what you have this awakening, like you were asleep and now you're kind of wakening up to like the life part of life, right?
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, I think those things are amazing, and it's like good to look at those things and like aspire to it. But I also think sometimes we forget that like, even those amazing moments, there is probably pain to get there for everybody. There's something that happened that is going to like restructure their life or restructure their heart or like change the way they view people. And that's okay. Like pain doesn't have to be this thing that we hate and we're angry about. It can be something that we respect and also give grace to, because it's just part of, it's actually life. Like that's what life is.
We have
living
to allow
is,
it to come in and allow it to go out.
It's all the things, and it doesn't get easier as you get older. As much as we like think like, oh, it'll get easier, I'll understand more. But like the older we get, the more we understand the weight and value of something. So sometimes it's harder, but like.
But
once you learn to respect those things and actually like honor them and like realize like life isn't supposed to be just those like highlight clips and those, you know, butterfly moments. It's also like, you know, the pain and the, you know, the learning and the growing. I've grown the most in the times where I was hurting the most. You know, the times that I was like ego driven and happy and like life is great and I'm amazing and everybody around me is great and amazing. I didn't grow at all in those moments. I was just like there living in that moment, like thinking nothing could come shake me out of that moment. But I was so naive, and like I think sometimes like respecting the fact that in those moments how you got there, and like that whole saying like never forget where you came from, but like never forget the moments that like put you exactly where you're supposed to be. Whether it's good or bad or whatever, it's like, yeah, it sucks. I'm so sad that I had to go through a divorce. I'm like one of the only people in my family to go through a divorce. So it's like, you know, my grandparents were married like 70 years. Like my parents are high school sweethearts. You know, my siblings, they are all, you know, have been with their person forever. But that doesn't make me wrong or, you know, it's hard to like not get in that mindset. But it's like everything happened to put me right here today. And, appreciate the person I'm with now on a different level and
Yes,
respect them on a different
absolutely.
level and respect their past too. So
Yes,
just
absolutely.
like all of us hairstylists, we've all been through some sort of
No,
pain
no.
and agony with our clients. Or,
All of like the
Yeah.
amen, emoji hands,
For
all the
sure.
things. I need to bring a choir in to like
Yeah.
sing amen to that. Well, you are
Yes.
amazing. Your
You're
soul is amazing. I am grateful to be around you, and
feeling is mutual.
yes, we'll definitely put in the show notes information where
Yes.
you can find her and be around her. And yeah, just all the love.
All the
like I am like
things.
speechless actually.
No.
And that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
I always have lots of words to say. Anyways, with that being said, thank you for listening in today and allowing us to get real and feel things with you.
Yeah.
And we would love to hear, anything you guys got back from this or you'd like to share.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here, KL.
Thank you so much for having me. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Hair, love, radio.
And as always,
I
I hair love you. Thank you for listening.